imagine the most powerful empires on earth. Egyptian pharaohs commanding armies of bronze-equipped soldiers. Hittite kings controlling the entire ancient Near East. Mycenaean Greeks building palace cities that lasted centuries. All of them dependent on one material above everything else: bronze. And bronze requires two metals combined together: copper, which was available across the Mediterranean world, and tin, which was not available anywhere near the Mediterranean, anywhere near Egypt, anywhere near Canaan or Greece, or any of the great civilizations of the ancient world. The question that historians and archaeologists debated for 2 centuries was simple: where did all that tin come from? The answer was confirmed in 2025 by scientists at Durham University using the most precise geological fingerprinting technology in history. 3 independent analytical techniques. 3,000-year-old tin ingots pulled from ancient shipwrecks. All 3 techniques pointing to the same answer: Cornwall, the remote foggy peninsula at the southwestern tip of Britain. Farmers who had never heard of Egypt. Mining communities with no writing and no cities, producing the single most strategically important commodity in the ancient world, and doing it completely anonymously for 3,000 years. This is that story. The Bronze Age world of 1300 BC was the most connected civilization the ancient world had ever produced. Egyptian palace workshops were casting bronze sword blades by the thousand. The Hittite Empire was equipping armies with bronze weapons across Anatolia. Canaanite city-states were trading bronze tools and vessels across the entire eastern Mediterranean, and every single piece of bronze required tin, a metal that existed in large accessible quantities in exactly 2 places. Cyprus provided copper. But the tin, the essential 1/10 ingredient without which bronze is impossible, had to come from somewhere else entirely. Bronze Age Cornish miners were working the tin deposits of southwestern Britain with wooden tools and animal hide bellows. They dug river gravel deposits, washing the material through wooden troughs, the heavy dark Cassiter tin ore settling to the bottom as the lighter gravel washed away. They smelted the ore in clay furnaces, poured the molten metal into stone molds, cast rectangular tin ingots, heavy, gray, pure. And then the Phoenicians arrived. The Phoenicians were the greatest maritime trading civilization the ancient world produced. Based in the cities of Tyre and Sidon on the Lebanese coast, they were the commercial engine of the Mediterranean. They invented the alphabet that eventually became the Greek alphabet, the Latin alphabet, and every Western writing system that exists today. They discovered how to make Tyrian purple, a dye so valuable it became the color of royalty across the ancient world. They navigated by the stars with extraordinary precision. They were so completely associated with the North Star that the Greeks named it the Phoenician Star in their honor, and they found the tin. Exactly how they first discovered Cornwall is not recorded. The Phoenicians wrote everything down on perishable materials, papyrus and wood, almost none of which survived. What we know is that by 1300 BC or earlier, Phoenician trading ships were making regular voyages through the Strait of Gibraltar, through what the Greeks called the Pillars of Hercules, out into the Atlantic Ocean that no other Mediterranean sailors dared enter, north along the Iberian coast of Spain and Portugal, north along the French Atlantic coast, and finally to the southwestern tip of Britain, where they exchanged Mediterranean goods for Cornish tin ingots. The exchange happened at a tidal island trading post off the Cornish coast, a place the ancient sources called Ictus, almost certainly what is today St. Michael's Mouth. At low tide, Bronze Age Cornish traders carried their heavy tin ingots across the causeway to the island. At high tide, Phoenician trading ships anchored offshore. Mediterranean pottery, wine and amphoras, bronze vessels and tools, traded for tin ingots that would travel 4,000 kilometers to become part of the weapons and tools of the Egyptian Empire. The Cornish farmers who made this exchange had no idea where the Phoenicians came from. The Phoenicians had no reason to tell them, and they told absolutely no one else either. The Phoenicians guarded the secret of the British tin route with a dedication that has no parallel in commercial history. They deliberately gave the source a misleading name, the Cassiterides, the Tin Islands, vague enough to be useless as navigational information. They navigated without lights when on the British route, keeping their ships dark in the night ocean to avoid being spotted and followed. They established lookout posts on the Scilly Islands to watch for any vessel that might be tracking their course. And when all of that was not enough, they wrecked their own ships. The ancient geographer Strabo recorded the most extraordinary story in commercial history. A Phoenician captain sailing the British tin route realized he was being followed by a Roman vessel. Knowing that the Roman ship was trying to discover where he was going, trying to learn the route that gave the Phoenician commercial world its most valuable advantage, the Phoenician captain turned his ship directly toward a rocky coastline and deliberately wrecked it. He destroyed his ship, his cargo, and his livelihood rather than allow the Romans to follow him to Britain. And Carthage, the great North African city that was the successor state to the Phoenician commercial empire, officially compensated him. State policy. Any captain who wrecked his own ship to protect the route to Britain would be paid in full by the government. The systematic commercial secrecy of the ancient world, maintained at the cost of ships deliberately sacrificed on rocks. The Greek historian Herodotus, the greatest historian of the ancient world, admitted openly that despite interviewing every merchant and sailor he could find, he could not discover where the Cassiterides were. The Phoenicians had kept the secret so completely that the man who invented the writing of history could not penetrate it. The only person outside the Phoenician commercial network to document the British tin source before the Romans broke the monopoly was Pytheas of Massalia, a Greek explorer from the colony that would become modern Marseille, who sailed around Britain in approximately 320 BC, visited Cornwall, witnessed the tin mining operations directly, and described the trading post at Ichthys in his written account. Nobody believed him for centuries. The ancient world was kept in ignorance by the most successful information suppression campaign in commercial history. For approximately 800 years, from roughly 1300 BC to roughly 500 BC, the Phoenicians maintained a monopoly on the British tin trade that was worth more than any other commercial advantage in the ancient world. Because without that tin, there was no bronze, and without bronze, there was no Egyptian army, no Hittite Empire, no Mycenaean palace civilization, no Canaanite trading cities, no ancient world as we understand it. All of it resting on the work of farming communities in Cornwall who had no writing, no cities, no knowledge of the empires they were supplying, and no idea that the foggy river valleys where they worked their tin deposits were the economic foundation of civilizations 4,000 kilometers away. The proof came in 2025. Dr. Alan Williams had spent 50 years mapping the geological signatures of Cornish and Devon tin deposits, the specific trace element combinations, the lead isotope ratios, the tin isotope profiles that are unique to each ore source, like a geological fingerprint. Dr. Benjamin Roberts at Durham University brought this lifetime of geological data together with tin ingots recovered from ancient shipwrecks off the Israeli coast dating to 1300 BC, and from a wreck off the southern French coast dating to 600 BC. 3 independent analytical techniques were applied: trace element analysis, lead isotope analysis, tin isotope analysis. All 3 pointed to the same source. The tin in those ancient Mediterranean shipwrecks was born in Cornwall and Devon. The ancient sources that described the Phoenicians sailing to the Tin Islands at the edge of the world were accurate. The debate that had run for 2 centuries was settled by a machine that measures atomic composition. Small farmers in a foggy corner of Britain fed the ancient world for 3,000 years. Nobody knew. Now we do.